it. But if you have, maybe stay tuned, and if you agree, let me know. Hey everybody, this is Spaceman, and I wanted to do a different video today and this week because this has been on my mind ever since I finished watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and I finally got myself through the entire show, and it's been about a week since I finished Season 7. This is one of the shows that I had struggled to start, and after getting through Season 1, it started to pick up its pace quite a bit, and I got more intrigued and invested in the characters, but this is very much a grind-heavy show, with a lot of episodes missing the mark, but also the majority of the episodes really reeling you in to the lore and the wonder of the Star Wars universe, and making this show worthwhile. And now that it's been about a week since I finished watching The Clone Wars, I felt that I needed to talk about how much this show has improved what I feel Star Wars is lacking at the moment, but more importantly, how it brings more validity to the prequels. Because make no mistake about it, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the animated series, is the single best piece of Star Wars content since the original trilogies, and this is coming from a prequels fan. This is coming from someone who grew up with the prequels and loved them as a child and grew to kind of dislike them as a teenager, knowing that they had a lot of dialogue flaws and writing decisions that didn't make sense. But overall, I still really love the prequels, and to this day, they are some of my favorite Star Wars content. And after watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars, I have to say, I think that I love the prequels again. I have always said one of two things. Number one, that the original trilogy is superior to the prequels, but number two, the original trilogy shines in execution, while the prequels shines in vision. I always thought that the prequels was a more interesting time of the Star Wars universe, and I always thought that the prequels had much more of a rich lore and history behind it than the original trilogy, because there is so much that needs to be filled in to make that connective tissue work with the other three movies. And after watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars, it's very clear that George Lucas's vision has been finally fulfilled and properly executed on, thanks to the likes of Dave Filoni and the creative team behind this amazing show. One of the big draws going in was, of course, getting more of Anakin's story, and of course getting more of his slow build-up, to eventually cascading off the cliff that is the choice between light and dark. And in this show, it feels more relevant than ever that his character arc is the best in Star Wars outside of Ahsoka herself, which we will get to in a minute. Anakin Skywalker is obviously one of the most well-known characters in the Star Wars universe. Most fans adore him. I am one of them. I love Anakin. I love him even more than I did originally, and in this show, I think the writing and the portrayal of Anakin is about as perfect as it could possibly be. He's one of my favorite characters, and in the prequel series, he always came across as an empty calorie character. And now let me explain really what I mean by that. In sports, there's a terminology called empty calorie stats, where a team or a player are able to put up a certain amount of numbers that help their individual status, but they don't help the collective team win. So let's say in basketball, someone's dropping a triple-double every game, Russell Westbrook, but it doesn't help the actual team advance any further than they already were, so it can be considered an empty calorie stat because you can get numbers out of them that don't really equate to much. That's kind of how I saw Anakin as an old hero back when the prequels first came out. I always appreciated his character and I appreciated his story, and while I did sympathize and empathize with his trials and tribulations and his breaking points up until he turned to the dark side during Order 66, I know a lot of people couldn't connect with his character because it always felt like his emotions were kind of empty calorie moments. We knew he was struggling as a teenager, as a child, and as an adult in the Jedi Academy trying to fit in and follow their rules. We knew he was going through his own kind of a trauma, and we knew that he had differing opinions on how the Jedi Order should be conducting their business, and his relationship with key figures like Mace Windu, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Chancellor Palpatine. But all these decisions kind of felt empty calorie once the final battle came down to deciding Anakin's code of ethics. It doesn't really help that the first episode of the prequels kind of takes place when Anakin isn't in a place where he can emotionally develop, and had we gotten episode 1 focusing more on teenage Anakin, it might have done more justification for his character turns down the line. But nonetheless, Anakin was still a compelling and intriguing character, but it never really felt like there was a lot of weight behind his decision making, other than we know we should be sad and we know we should feel for him. And while I did, many other people just didn't. Going into the Clone Wars TV show, though, we had more than enough time to fully discover, analyze, and react to Anakin's decision-making as he grows up with the times and as they change along the series. We got to see him as a young Jedi Knight working in Season 1 through 2, trying to follow in the steps of Obi-Wan. In Seasons 3 through 4 and 5, he's much more independent and confident in his decision-making, and he's much more radical with some of the moves he makes and the decisions he makes to keep those he loves and those he cares about safe. He's not afraid to get dirty, and there's a couple of good lines in the show where he talks about the fact that the Jedi are not willing to go the extra mile to secure peace and prosperity because they feel they can't overstep some boundaries, but Anakin doesn't operate that way. Not only is the voice acting great as always, but the writing behind Anakin shows his turn to the dark side as a methodical, isolated step one after another that doesn't just turn on a dime in the last episode, but it takes seasons upon seasons of progression and build-up to fully realize his character arc. This is one of the best parts of the show. It turns Anakin into a true hero who not only loves his clones, but loves being a master to Ahsoka and loves being a brother to Obi-Wan. And once the realization towards the end is that he has no other decision than to overstep that boundary, to overstep that line, to get done what needs to be done, it makes his turn to the dark side in Episode 3 that much more justified, and it turns his character arc and character core from an empty calorie character who is still beloved to a fully fleshed out and realized personality that we can all understand and feel for as he finally makes that turn and does the unthinkable. But it's not just the character arc of Anakin that I feel was so well written and portrayed and realized